Donald Trump's White House press secretary, Karoline Leavitt, made a devastating mistake on Fox News that if people understood, she glitched out mid-lie. If people understood the historical significance of this, I think it would be getting a lot more attention. So here was Karoline Leavitt this morning on Fox talking about Ukraine, Russia, conflict, war, Putin, Zelensky, all in the context of Donald Trump's scheduled meeting with the Russian President Vladimir Putin tomorrow. And listen very carefully to what she said here, because this is really about exactly the words she uses.
This is a highly complex and brutal war that, again, inherited by Joe Biden. Russia did not invade.
Let me play that back.
Inherited by Joe Biden. Russia did not invade Ukraine under President Trump. They invaded under Joe Biden because of his incompetence and his weakness. And this president is trying to solve it and bring it to an end. And he deserves great credit for that.
So, of course, she glitched. And the implication here is she wanted to say Trump inherited the Ukraine-Russia war from Biden. Instead, she had a sort of Freudian slip there where she says Biden is the one who inherited this war. And if that's the case, it would have been from Trump previously. Now, you might be saying, wait a second, if Putin invaded Ukraine in 2022, Biden was president. It is actually Trump inheriting it for Biden. I think that's all fine. All these conversations are fine. There's really two important dates here. And I think this is where the conversation is more suited. It's more suited to getting to the core of Trump's claims of being the anti-war president and the best possible arbiter of global conflict. 2014 and 2022. 2014 was really the start of this invasion. Russia annexed Crimea, started moving into the Donetsk and the Luhansk, and then triggered this ongoing war in the Donbass region. And that started in 2014, and some of the things I'm mentioning, it took time to develop. And in a broader sense, that's like the real start of the conflict. It happened under Obama, and it was inherited by Donald Trump. So if we want sort of our first shot, our first analysis at saying, does Trump seem to have what it takes to end these conflicts? Not only did Trump not end it during his first term, he allowed it to grow and fester. Now, this is where it starts to get more overtly political. Yes, Putin invaded Ukraine in other areas, in other regions in 2022. And so we might call that the next phase of this war or invasion. That happened under Biden. And then Trump came in. Now, there's a number of different criticisms that can be made here or analyses. One, which I think is an interesting one, is that when Trump says Putin never would have done that had I been president, even if he were right, and Trump is just spitballing all the time, he'll try to see what he can get away with. But if it were true that had Biden not won in 2020, had Trump won, Putin maybe wouldn't have invaded. That could be true, but for different reasons than Trump thinks. When Trump says Putin never would have invaded if I had won instead of Biden in 2020, what Trump means is because Putin's afraid of me. Putin never would have had the audacity to do it if I were president. He isn't scared of Biden, but he's scared of me, and that's why. But there's another interpretation, which is all sort of up for discussion, but it's equally, at least hypothetically valid, which is Putin might not have invaded Russia. Putin might not have invaded Ukraine in 2022 if Trump were president, because he sees Trump as a manipulatable guy from whom he can get other things without needing to invade Ukraine. So that is a possibility. But the broader issue here, of course, is Trump allowed Putin's aggression with Crimea, Donetsk, Luhansk to go essentially unabated and uncontested during the entirety of Donald Trump's first term. So Trump wants us to believe he's this tough guy who ends these conflicts, and people, as soon as Trump is president, go, of course, no, sir, whatever you want. But we have historical precedent that is not the case. We then get, of course, to this term, and it's important also to hold Trump accountable for the promises that he made. Donald Trump long promised during the campaign for 2024 that the Russia-Ukraine war would end within 24 hours of Trump becoming president-elect. That deadline came and went, and it didn't happen. Then we were told within a month of becoming president-elect, Trump is going to end the Russia-Ukraine war, which would have put that roughly at December 5th. That didn't happen. They moved the goalposts again. It then became what Trump meant about 24 hours was he would end the Russia-Ukraine war within 24 hours of being sworn in late January. That didn't happen. Then it was going to be a month. Then it was going to be 100 days from getting sworn in. All of those milestones, those timelines came and went. And then they shifted to, and J.D. Vance alluded to this, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said it, this may not be solvable. We may be getting ready to walk away. How much effort are we really going to put into this to begin with? So once again, Karoline Leavitt, whose Freudian slip opens the door to this entire broader discussion, is trying to clean up for a guy who has made 10, 12, 15 different promises and claims with regard to what he can convince Putin to do, all of which have failed to take place. Biden inherited this war, a Freudian slip for sure, but really a much, much broader issue. Now, a couple other moments from this morning's appearance on Fox News. Karoline Leavitt, again, talking about the DC militarization. And interestingly, this is so funny. They both want us to believe crime is so bad in DC that Trump needs to federalize DC police and bring armed vehicles and the whole thing, but also crime's down in DC, and that's thanks to Donald Trump. Both are supposed to be true under Karoline Leavitt.
Karoline, I know that the president can do this for 30 days if he notifies the right committees in Congress, which he did. There were some stories the Democrats were spreading the narrative. We don't need the National Guard in there because crime has gone down around 30%, 26%, I think, this past year, and 35% the year before that. And then we heard those numbers might be inaccurate. They might be false. And some people were let go or they were suspended, right, Brian, from their jobs because of it. Can you clear that up for us? Are those numbers correct?
Yeah, these numbers are absolutely correct, and we will continue to provide the American public and the press with the numbers because we're proud of these efforts. If the Democrats had their way, there would be hundreds more criminals roaming free in the streets of the District of Columbia right now. There would be hundreds of more illegal aliens who this task force has already detained and arrested, and now they are focused on deporting from our country. Those individuals would remain in the District of Columbia where they would have been free to do more harm. And that's not...
I think you get the point. Karoline, is it true that crime is down significantly in Washington, D.C.? Absolutely. And that is a great success of President Donald Trump. Karoline, is it true that crime is up in Washington, D.C., and therefore Donald Trump needs to federalize the police and start busting down encampments and arresting or sending away homeless people? Absolutely. D.C. is completely out of control. Now, I am not naive to the way that the average MAGA might try to bridge this gap. And I want to deal with that head on. They could say, you know, David, you're being kind of silly here. It can be true that crime in DC is down, but it started so high that it still justifies Donald Trump taking the actions that he is taking. And of course, the data completely contradicts that because you simply cannot, if you acknowledge the degree to which crime is down in DC, it becomes impossible to justify taking this action at all. The reason Trump's taking it is because DC isn't a state and it has no governor. It's much easier as a test case for doing this. In other states, you would either need the consent of the governor or you would need to trample the governor. And that, at least for now, is a little bit more complicated, although they did it on a small scale in LA. That wasn't actually federalizing law enforcement, though. It's important to be clear. That was just sending in federal troops, and it's a different thing. So Karoline Leavitt speaking out of both sides of her mouth, and the Fox and Friends hosts let her do it. Finally, here is Karoline Leavitt bragging about Donald Trump's incredible achievements in these short 6, almost 7 months of his second term with regard to ending global conflict. Listen to this.
Some of the people in liberal media and liberal circles, people that the president fired, said that the president is going to be embarrassed by Putin. Speak to that. What does the president walk out of a meeting? We know who he is. I'm sure he's not going to tolerate disrespect from Putin, even though he wants peace, right?
Right.
Well, Lawrence, you're being very kind, and I won't be so kind, and I'll just name some of those people, such as John Bolton, who I think has made a disgrace of himself on television and in the newspapers, claiming that he knows better than President Trump. No, he doesn't, and neither do any of these so-called foreign policy experts who have never solved a foreign policy conflict in their lives. Look at what this president has done in 6 months. He has stopped 7 global conflicts all around the world using the leverage of the United States of America to negotiate these conflicts to an end. You had the leaders of Azerbaijan and Armenia at the White House last week, both of whom said this would not have been possible without the leadership of President Trump and his administration. So the American people trust this president. That's why they overwhelmingly reelected him. And I think it's pathetic, some of the chatter that we see from these so-called experts who have zero accomplishments on their own resumes to point to. President Trump knows what he's doing.
Yeah. He has ended so many global conflicts. It's just completely and totally unbelievable. You know, the only issue with this is he said he'd be the anti-war president. And of course, we all know now about the Iran strike. But even beyond that, the Trump administration has done significantly more airstrikes already than Biden did, now speaking globally. Trump is on pace to completely blow out of the water, figuratively, what Joe Biden was doing as far as airstrikes go. There's really no empirical basis on which you can make the claim that Trump is sticking to this, he's in any way adhering to the idea that he's the anti-war president and the one that reduces conflict. And so this is an ongoing propaganda battle at this point in time. The facts belie all of the claims. Deficit's going to be down. Well, the deficit's up 20%. I'm going to be the anti-war president. You bombed Iran and have escalated airstrikes around the world. Tariffs are going to create growth. They're not doing it. Prices are going to come down. Prices are going up. And so we have moved beyond this being a policy battle or an economic battle or a legislative battle. This is simply now a propaganda battle. And it's a propaganda battle, by the way, that there are some people involved in waging who are really not competent. And I want to talk about a couple of those people next. You know, I'll often talk to my friends about what do we really think is private on our computers and on our phones. And many people believe that their emails are genuinely private. And it turns out that a lot of the email services are looking at your emails and can look at your emails even after you have deleted them, which is why I recommend our sponsor, StartMail, a trusted name in secure email for more than a decade. StartMail is based in the Netherlands. Netherlands is known for very strong data protection laws. Your emails won't be scanned. Your emails won't be tracked. StartMail will block those invasive tracking pixels so you won't be monitored by companies and by hackers. And when you delete an email in StartMail, it is gone for good. Your data stays private. They are all in on this with a ton of features, including aliases to keep you anonymous, strong encryption with your emails. It is super easy to move to StartMail. It's a few clicks, migrate your emails, migrate your contacts. You really can't go wrong. Try StartMail for yourself, completely free for 7 days at startmail.com/Pakman, which will also give you 50% off your first year. The link is in the description.